There's something that I find really, really insane about today, about the 21st century, is that there are still parents out there that do not support or accept their children for who they really are. And I just find that insane. Yes, I know you're from a different generation, and I know in your generation, things like that were taboo, but it didn't mean that it didn't happen. And yes, I'm talking about their children either being gay, lesbian, bi, and they don't support their children. They still cannot accept it. And it's not just about your sexuality, it can also be to do with your mental health as well. If you're struggling, your parents just simply don't know how to help you, they don't support you because they don't understand, because in their generation, it wasn't talked about. You've got grown men, grown ass men, that have kids, that have the mindset that their children should be a certain way, especially boys. Boys can't show emotion because it means you're less of a man. I mean, get with the program and get with the times. Stop traumatizing your children into being somebody that they're not. Because if you don't want your child to end up on death's door, really, really struggling with their mental health, then you will support that child no matter what. And I'm sorry, if you can't even try to understand or try to support your child, then you should never have been a parent in the first place. If you can't support somebody else, even through something that you don't particularly understand, and you're not willing to try, then you do not love that child enough, and you should not be a parent. And a lot of people are going to hate me for saying this, but it is a true fact. I think a lot of people don't think about things like this when they actually decide to have a child or they become a parent. They think that as long as a child has a roof over its head, food in the fridge, warm home, that you're a good parent. But to be honest with you, if you're not emotionally mature, then your child's going to suffer. You're going to traumatize your child. And I know a lot of parents, they do, make mistakes, and no parent is perfect. Jesus. You learn as you go, especially if you have, if you only have one child, if it's your first child. And I mean, I used to want kids. I did. But then that was before. And now I think I've found a sense of freedom for myself. And kids are just not something that I actually particularly want right now. Maybe I'll change my mind in the future, but whatever. But if I was going to have kids, I would at least make sure that I was emotionally intact, emotionally mature enough to actually raise that child to not traumatize it. Now, we can't always, like I say, we can't always be perfect. You can't do everything perfectly. There might be things that, you still remember when you were a child that do traumatize you, like in a sort of a funny way, not a harming way. Like every parent is different, but I'm talking about these parents that have kids and they want to mold them. They want to mold their child into what they want that child to be. I'm sorry, but when your child gets older and they start gaining their own independence, they will start to figure out what they like and what they don't like. They'll start to figure out who they want to be in this world. Now, whoever that child wants to be, you as a parent have to support their decisions. You can guide that child, you can guide them, to not make mistakes, but they're going to make mistakes. You probably made mistakes when you were younger. So did everybody. I know that I did. And I was the type of child that learned the hard way. So my parents would tell me, don't hang around with that person, or don't do this, make this decision, choose this path, choose this way. And as much as, yes, I would listen to the advice, half of the time I wouldn't take it because I would just learn on my own. And honestly, I think that is the best way to learn, is the hard way, because you experience it. I've never listened to anyone who's told me not to hang around with a certain person. I will not listen to anyone's advice telling me not to hang around with certain people unless that person has shown me otherwise. If you don't show me otherwise, then I'm gonna do what I want to do. You know what I mean? And I think it's the best way to learn. It is. It really is. It's the best life experience that you can ever have. But, it's not an unknown thing that there are people out there that don't have relationships with their parents anymore or their family, because their family can't accept the choices that they make, the choices, you know, the person that they actually are. They can't accept that and they can't understand it. And you do realize that by not supporting that child, by not even trying to understand or just accepting them for who they are, for that matter, you are actually losing that child. Like, for what? Like, because honestly, if they're not doing any harm, if as long as they're not a criminal and they're not going around, you know, doing illegal things, you know, think of the worst things you could think of, then what is the harm in them being themselves? I hear it all of the time. And you know what? I used to actually know someone who didn't have a very good relationship with their parent because they couldn't accept them. And you know, there's people that have actually kicked their kids out because of that reason. And I just think it's absolutely barbaric. We're living in the 21st century, guys. Like, come on, get with the fucking program. Just get with it. Like, the world isn't what it once was. We're not living in caveman times. And whatever you were taught growing up, you might have been traumatized by your father or your mother, whoever it may be, to be a certain way. And, you know, they might have taught you that being gay is wrong, being bi is wrong, whatever. And you might have had that ingrained into your brain, and maybe half of the time I think that is the reason why, but you need to not put that trauma onto your child. You need to break that cycle. Because honestly, if these cycles are not broken, then you are ruining a human being. If you think about when you have a child, right, you are responsible for bringing that child into the world. You are responsible for bringing up that child, you know, to make sure the child is healthy, it's, you know, they're well educated and all that, right? They're loved. And as I said before, they have a roof over their head, food, clothes, you know, all of that stuff. But you also need to remember your words and what you are actually putting onto that child, the mindset, you know, that you have. Because if you're making that child live in a home where they feel like they can't be themselves, that that is the most traumatic thing you could ever put a human being through. And you will one day lose that child. Either that child will actually just walk away, they'll move out, they'll leave, and they'll never speak to you again. They'll have a life without you, they'll cut all contact. Or the second option, I'm sorry to say, you will lose that child because they will end up taking their own life. And it's very raw. I am very raw. If you've never watched my videos before, I am very raw because I speak the truth. I don't sugarcoat it. I'm not going to beat around the bush for anyone. So if you're a parent watching this, I suggest that you listen, because I'm not talking shit. It's the truth. It happens every single day. People make the decision to end their own life because they can't deal with the fact that their own parents can't stand them, actually hate them. And there are actually people out there like that, that are parents, and it's so scary. It is so scary that these types of people, these narrow minded people, can even make that decision to be parents. I think the decision should be taken away from them. I really do. I mean, it's not a thing, and it's impossible to stop people from having a child. But I honestly think before you actually do have a child, if you do think like that and you do have that mindset, if you are homophobic or whatever, I really do think you need to get some fucking therapy, hun, because honestly, when you have a child, you don't know what that child's going to grow up to be. And if you are homophobic, then if your child grows up and decides, or in fact, it's not even a decision, they don't make that choice, that's just who they are, you know. And you know, it's like a saying, like, you love who you love, right? You can't help who you love. And whether that is the same sex person or not, they can't help that. It's not a choice. So if you are someone who is homophobic and you do have a child, then, well, I don't have any more words. I really don't, because I think I've run out of words. Because I actually am just flabbergasted. I'm flabbergasted that in this generation, we actually have to even address this issue. I mean, it's not the only issue of the world, I am aware, but it is a massive issue. So, yeah, I've got nothing more to say on the matter. But if you are a parent and you did make it to the end of this video, you feel free to comment your thoughts. I don't care if they're offensive. If you want to be offensive, they'll just get deleted. But I'm really curious. I'm really curious to know what you actually think of everything that I've just said. Like, what are your thoughts? I'm very curious. So if you did make it to the end of this video, please just comment. Comment your feelings and comment your thoughts. But thanks for watching.